Not much equipment at home? No worries. Welcome back to the Liftology YouTube channel, and today we've got 4 exercises that can be done at home with basic equipment, have simple progressions and regressions, and provide huge returns in strength and size and definition. Hang around to the end to see the extra exercise we have on the list for power development.
The first exercise on our list is the rear foot elevated split squat, or more commonly known as the Bulgarian split squat. Why? Well, that's a question for Angel Spasov. As to why it's on our list, that's because it is hands down one of the simplest, but also one of the most intense leg crushing exercises there is. It's great for hypertrophy and higher rep ranges, strength when loaded up heavy, and can even be used to develop power by using a lighter weight and performing quick, rapid repetitions. There are 2 common setups for this exercise. The first one is to sit down on a bench, extend one leg out in front of you, which is going to be your working leg, and stand up where your heel touches the ground. I prefer the bottom-up approach, where you start in the down position, which allows you to place your front foot so your knee is at or slightly over your front toes. You can then load the weight onto that front foot and press yourself up. Choose whichever one feels more comfortable or natural for you. After you've decided on which setup works best and you're in your start position, lower the back knee toward the ground while keeping your weight loaded toward your front leg. You want to feel like you are moving up and down as opposed to back and forward. Like we mentioned earlier, it's a simple movement, but definitely not easy. If it's too challenging, start with just your body weight, or even try lowering the support for the back foot. If you want more of a challenge, hold the dumbbells in a front rack position. This is a great way to work your core by staying upright and resisting spinal flexion. You can also place an emphasis on hip stability and core strengthening by offset loading the exercise on the side of the leg that is back. Overall, a great option for the lower body with multiple progressions to keep challenging yourself.
We'd love to recommend the pistol squat as a great lower body exercise to do at home, but in reality, most people won't be able to do them. The single leg squat is still a great exercise, so we have 2 other options to work on as alternatives as you work your way toward being able to do a pistol squat. For the first variation of the single leg squat, start by standing on a bench or step. Sit your hips back, then flex your knee as you lower your other heel to the ground. At first, move slowly and make sure you feel your weight sit back into your glutes before lowering yourself down. This isn't a step up, so don't shift your weight off of the leg that's on the step. You're just using the ground as a depth gauge. Once that heel feels the ground, press through the foot on the step and return to the starting position. A couple things to keep in mind. This shouldn't cause knee pain. If you feel pain in your knee, make sure you're keeping your hip externally rotated. Good external rotation means your knee should not be collapsing in past the midline of your foot, or as a reference point, inside your middle toe. To create that hip stability, imagine screwing your ankle down into your foot before starting the movement. The other thing would be to sit the hips back a little further. You may have to exaggerate that sit back into the hips at the start to make sure you feel the glutes working. This exercise is great because of the simplicity in progression. Start low at first. This could mean standing on a low step, single weight plate, or even a thick book. As you gain strength and confidence, you can increase the height of the step, and then try adding resistance by holding a dumbbell on the side of the leg doing the lifting. The second variation is just performing a single leg squat down to a bench or a chair. This is like pistol squatting with a safety net. Same as the first variation, start by sitting your hips back, then flex your knee as you would sit down toward the bench. You could reach your arms out to act as a counterbalance as you lower down. Having the bench there also allows you to break the movement into 2 separate parts if you want, to focus on just the eccentric, sitting down, or the concentric, standing up.
Moving into the hip dominant patterns, we begin with the hip thrust. This sits atop our list of posterior chain exercises because Brett Contreras says so. For those that don't know who that is, he's considered the foremost expert on glute training, so who are we to argue? Simple and versatile, the hip thrust can be used for hypertrophy, strength, speed, power, and definition. Just lie down across a bench with your shoulder blades at the edge and your knees flexed about 90 degrees. Place a weight right at the hip crease, which is where your hips flex. Tuck your chin so your head isn't hanging back. Lower your butt toward the ground in a controlled manner as you pivot off the edge of the bench, then squeeze your butt tight and drive the front of the hips towards the sky. Some cues to focus on are keeping your toes slightly turned out, not letting your knees collapse in toward each other, and emphasizing the glute squeeze by imagining you are holding a coin between your butt cheeks at the top.
What did he say?
That last one, although it sounds strange, is actually really important. Emphasizing the glute squeeze will keep your spine in a safe neutral position and prevent you from arching your lower back to create more height at the top of the extension. Occasionally, people may complain about a hamstring cramp when performing hip thrusts. If that happens, just slide your feet an inch or two forward and don't try to pull your heels towards your butt on the way up. As with most lower body movements, you can try this with just your body weight at first until you feel comfortable with it. You can also lower the bench or step you are lying on to decrease the range of motion, and once that feels easy, progress to a higher bench. If you want to really test your stability, try doing one leg at a time by pulling a non-working leg toward the chest. To add weight to a single leg hip thrust, place a dumbbell on the side of the hip that is doing the lifting. To develop power, you can anchor down an elastic band with dumbbells and place the band across your hip crease. Now you can really drive into that extension without fear of the dumbbell flying off of your hips.
The RDL is a great exercise, but when working at home, using a barbell isn't always an option. To get the most bang for your buck at home, we suggest going with a single leg RDL. With the single leg variation, you can strengthen your glutes and hamstrings while also strengthening your hip and core stability. Using a dumbbell in the hand opposite of the leg you're supported on increases the demand on core muscles to resist rotation toward that side. This exercise can be really challenging if you have trouble with hip stability. A great way to learn the pattern correctly is by starting with assistance. Grab a pole, like a dowel or a broomstick, in the opposite hand of the leg you'll be standing on. Now load your weight onto one leg and sit the hips back while reaching the opposite leg behind you. Without proper hip stability, you may feel your knee collapsing in the direction of your big toe. Screw your foot into the ground and keep that knee in line or just outside the middle toe. Since you have the assistance, spend a few seconds in the bottom position and get used to that external rotation at the hip. It's important to keep your hips parallel to the floor. The cue for this is to think about reaching your heel toward the wall instead of up toward the ceiling. Try not to think about actively flexing your knee on the working leg. If you keep the knee soft as you sit your hips back, your knee should flex as much as it needs to counterbalance the movement. Once you're parallel, or close to parallel to the ground, press your foot into the floor, pulling the hips forward towards the starting position. You want to maintain a straight line from the top of your head, through your hips, to the heel that is reaching behind you on the way down, and on the way up. A good visual to use is to think about a drinking bird toy. As it lowers its beak towards the glass, it hinges on a fulcrum, keeping a straight line through its quote-unquote hips. Once you've mastered the pattern using some assistance, progress it by removing the assistance and performing the movement with just your body weight. At this stage, you can create challenges by changing the tempo. Try adding a 2 or 3 second pause at the bottom, sitting back slowly, coming up slowly, or any combination of the three. For a hypertrophic or strength workout, you can add assistance by holding dumbbells. Using a dumbbell in each hand is a great way to load up the exercise for strength gain. This will help you feel more balanced, allowing you to use more weight for the exercise. As mentioned earlier, to gain strength in your glutes and hamstrings, as well as maximize your core strength, use an offset load by holding a dumbbell in the opposite hand of the leg you're working. For those who stuck around, the extra exercise that didn't make our top 4 was only because of its ability to be primarily used as a power development exercise or for metabolic conditioning. And that exercise is the jump squat. In order for power development, the jump squat is performed in sets of 5. Squat down fast, not quite parallel, and then quickly explode up through your feet as high as you can and land softly. Reset and perform again. In order to use it as a metabolic conditioning tool, you may perform it over an allotted period of time, but recognize power output drops after 5. Having covered those 5 exercises, we hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please leave a like, a comment, and subscribe for future content. And until next time, make sure you're working out just as smart as you are hard.